Welcome to 1995Wrangler.com. The other day on the way to work, my brakes froze up front right, but I'm gonna go ahead and switch out the driver's side and passenger side calipers. If one went out, then chances are the other one's eventually pretty close to going out. Hey, welcome to 1995Wrangler.com. My brake caliper froze up and it started to smoke. It smelled kind of like an electrical fire going on. So today we're going to change out the brakes. The tools that I'm going to be using is a ratcheting 1/2 inch and a ratcheting 9/16, some lubricant, and then because I'm breaking the brake line loose, I'm using the MightyVac bleeder. Lug nuts are off, tires off. To get the old caliper off, 9/16 does the hose line, and currently 1/2 inch does the caliper line. Okay, first thing I'm gonna loosen up these brake lines a little bit so that everything's loose before I start taking off the parts that are gonna leak. That one's loose. And this one's loose. Now before I take it off, I'm gonna make sure that this is loose, 9/16, because otherwise I'm gonna be fighting it with something that doesn't move. Now I'm gonna tighten it back up. That's ready for me to change, but I'm gonna change it when I have the new caliper ready to go. So let me get the new caliper out of the box, right back. All right, some of the parts that came with my caliper, hardware-wise, this particular caliper came with a new Banjo bolt. Banjo bolt has a hole in the side right there, and the bolt itself is hollow, but more or less it's probably called the Banjo bolt because it goes through the brake line hole that looks like this, somewhat to a degree resembling a banjo. It also has a notch in it that's going to match up with a knob that is on the caliper. I bought 2 new calipers. Parts store. These are remanufactured calipers. One of the important things you want to do is make sure that these threads are clean. Otherwise, your banjo bolt is not going to go into the threads properly. And when you break this brake line loose, you want to spend as little time as possible making sure that it's hooked up. So you can see this one came with a banjo bolt, so I'm going to use the new banjo bolt, which goes in freely. There are brass banjo fittings that are basically brass washers that go on each end of that. If you notice that the zerd is on top, the reason why the zerd is on top, because if it was on the bottom, the lowest portion, you'd never be able to get the air out. So the zerd is on top, so the air rises to the top, and that allows you to bleed out the caliper. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the old caliper. That requires a 1/2 inch wrench, a couple bolts. You simply take those off just like this once they've been broken loose, and that's 1, 2. Pry out the old brake assembly. Should more or less just come right off, unless you've got a problem. I'm going to take out the old shoes. I'm going to reuse these shoes because they have not been on that long. As you can tell, there's plenty of life left in them. Going to break this loose right here. This is our line for the brakes. So I'm leaving this brake line on for now. Hopefully it hasn't collapsed or corroded or caused problems. One of the things that happen in brake lines is over time they become a check valve as it gets corroded. It's pretty small to begin with, as you can see. And what happens is the master cylinder has power to push the fluid into the caliper through the line, but when the line is clogged, sometimes the caliper does not have the strength to push the fluid back into the master cylinder, thus causing your calipers to freeze, and that's a problem. There's my brake line. That's where the new one's going to go. I want to make sure that the notch that's in here fits up with this indentation or groove right there. So this one's pretty much ready to go. Hopefully it'll be a quick process and we won't have too much of an issue. Alright, I've got my Banjo bolt ready. Putting my washer on there. One's going to go on the top, one's going to go on the bottom over here. We're good to go with that. And let's go ahead and loosen this up. Again, you're going to get some fluid. You notice when this breaks loose, fluid is going to start coming out. It is gravity fed. So the faster I can do this, the less fluid I'll lose. Okay. I can hold that with my fingers while I drop out my old Banjo bolt. I have my bolts ready. The washer's going to go on here, just like that. But I'm going to put it onto this side. The notch is going to go right across that ridge right there. And then this is going through the front. So we'll go through the front, put the washer on, and re-thread this in. Make sure it sits in the proper place on that notch. Otherwise you're going to potentially have some big problems. Then snug it up. I don't tighten it too much right now, I just snug it to stop the fluid from coming out. Shoes just pop in. Make sure your sliders are back. They make a smiley face. Rest your brakes down in. If you look down at the bottom here, these two little pegs will sit right on top of there. If your sliders are properly depressed and pulled back, your entire brake assembly should pretty much just slide on. Here you go. 12 millimeter. MightyVac brake line vacuum. Then you're going to come over here. You're going to attach the line right to the zert. Okay. So that was all there. Now we're going to pump this thing up a little bit again. And let's see what we get for fluid this time. And snug it up. You want to get it to where it's nice solid fluid coming through. Took it out for a test drive. The brake's actually locked up. Looks like I picked up a passenger. Replaced the calipers on both sides. We're all done. All the tires are on. The brakes are working. Took it out, locked them up out on the street, drove around a little bit. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. 1995Wrangler.com, FloridaJeepRides.com. Look us up. We're here.